the journey, living and serving with our Brahmin family. So let's invite our dear angel brother Ken. Welcome.
Om Shanti, dear Sister Bhumi, Didi, Om Shanti, Didi also, Om Shanti, everyone. Well, today I'm in Mexico. I was in Argentina, I'm now in Mexico, which is very good because it's the same, it's like 1 hour before New York and not 2 hours ahead. And I must confess that I've enjoyed so much being able to share something with Avyak Paravav, to listen and to get Didi's inspirations and watch these extracts of Abhiyak Moyes. I've been enjoying it so much. But the fact that I have to share in the evening, it really helps me keep my mind focused. And there's a distaste for wasting time or energy because of that, I don't like to get into conversations that are unnecessary. I don't like to do actions that are unnecessary. It's like because I want to be okay to be able to share something. And I like that extract from the Morley where Baba saying that wasteful thoughts are very powerful and very fast. But we know that, as Baba said, the force of body consciousness is actually just the force of both our ignorance and the vices that we have. And this idea of going with the flow, if you look at water, as Didi was sharing about water and the waves and so on, the rivers, there's this expression that we have in English, go with the flow. I mean, it doesn't matter, just adjust to things as they are and just go with the flow. The problem is the flow is downwards always. So I need to sometimes swim against the current. I need to work with myself. And we know that the world around us, everything that we see, touch, hear, and feel, and everyone practically that we meet, they live in this Tamil Pradhan world. And I will be very vulnerable to that Tamil Pradhan world if I'm not in soul consciousness. And I like this idea from Baba in the extract that came, that we need to have the power of transformation in a second, and that's the whole theme of this month, transforming sanskars. So one thought, just to give an example, a sort of thought that can change my direction, that I'm not influenced by anything around me. I'm not influenced by the conversations and the states. And I'm just not just adjusting myself, means if adjusting doesn't mean that if someone's angry, I have to also become angry so that I'm at an equal par. No, I have to adjust myself internally to whatever's going on, whoever's saying anything. So one question that I ask myself often, which has the immediate power of transformation in a second, is this one. If I were already a deity, what would interest me? If I were already in the Sun dynasty, what would I be involved with? What sort of conversations would I probably hardly any of them? Of course, we have to keep a minimum conversation with others because of service and because of serving people, because of helping people. But we don't need to say so much. We don't need to think so much. We don't need to do so much either. But internally, I have to keep my thoughts elevated. I have to understand that even if everyone else and everything else is Tamil Pradhan, I have to keep myself Sata Pradhan. So if I were already a deity, what would interest me? Because one thing that helps us is in adjusting to other people, because that's what I was wanting to share about tonight, adjusting to however and whatever people are, is the understanding. Like the main weapon that we have is the understanding that comes from Gyan and the power of yoga that comes from our connection with Baba. If I understand who I am really, I also understand that no one is what they are doing. No one is what they become. No one is what they become. And also, we are not what other people do to us. So it's no use to play the game of victim that I'm unhappy because of so and so. I'm having extra thoughts because of something someone else said. And the practice that we have to have as yogis, not like the conquering of the sense organs, is not just not being attracted to things that are happening around us in real time, but I also have to go beyond anything I've heard, because that's also being caught in the world of sound. I have to go beyond anything I've heard. I have to go beyond anything I've seen. So that's like, those are things that have been registered through my eyes or through my ears. And these are the two main sense organs. So this consciousness that we are not what we are doing, that has happened over some time. We're being impelled by our karmic accounts, and that's often making us do things, but the karmic accounts inside of us. And we are not what we've become, because there's a distance. There's a distance between what I am in the beginning and what I've become now. There's a big distance. And this distance, if I'm going back to what I was before, there's no struggle. But if there's a big distance, there is a struggle, because it's like I'm two people. I'm this original, loving, beautiful, peaceful soul, and also I'm this person that's stuck in the world of devices. And so how not to get caught up in the flow of things, as Didi was talking about? It's like our senses, physical senses, and our common sense even informs us that the world is flat, for example. But we know that the world is not flat. It's completely round. That if you go off in one direction and keep on going and going and going, after a long time, you'll come back coming from the opposite direction, because you've gone around the whole earth. And Bob often mentions about Vasco da Gama, who circumnavigated the world, this Portuguese explorer. So we know that the world is not flat. But at the same time, we think that we are this life. Like we can't see the whole picture. And so we think that everything is reduced to this body and this life. And that, of course, is the essence of body consciousness. So if I'm living and working with someone who probably, like me, is body conscious number-wise, some of us are more, some of us are less. And if we're Brahmins, then we also number-wise in our practice of soul conscious. Sometimes we are more, sometimes we're less. But definitely we have the experience now that we are Brahmins, we know these things. That if I become soul conscious, I will see a different world. I will see a different person in front of me. I'll practically be able to see and understand and also take into account, well, that soul's had a long story just like me. And you can imagine a relationship between two people. And they're like two buildings side by side. And if each birth were just like, one floor, and the most recent floor is this floor that we're living on, and then there are other floors that we don't know about, our other births. And if you go down into the basement, for example, the foundation of the building, that's where our best sanskars are. So I'm a building, using this analogy. So the other person is a building. And here we are stuck on the top floor of the building, which is the most recent floor, this life. And we're interacting at this level. And we've got no idea what happened on the other floors. And more importantly, we forget that our treasures, our spiritual treasures, are in the basement of the building. So I need to, okay, I have to stop and look at the other person because the answer is not in anyone else. I like to use this idea. The only thing that we have in common, and there are a few questions that we can ask here, like you can't compare an apple with an orange. An apple is an apple, an orange is an orange. The only thing that they have in common is that they're fruits and they taste differently, they're different colors and so on, different properties even, but they're both fruits. In the same way, me and someone else that I have to adjust to, I'm an apple and the other one's an orange. So I have to take into account what we have in common. This is like the very first question that we have to ask ourselves. If I'm trying to adjust to someone, number one question, what do I have in common with this soul? I have in common with every single soul. We have the common home. We all started off in the soul world. We have a similar original state in the soul world. We have the same God. We're connected with the same one. No matter what tradition we belong to, on the tree, we are connected somehow to the seed who is God. Now, if the person that I have to adjust to is another Brahmin, then there are other things that we have in common. We are both children of Baba. We've recognized Baba. We've recognized Gyan. We are making efforts to become deities. We don't have that in common with our Lokik people, but with other Brahmins, we are all part of this Brahmin family, and we are all dear children of Baba. That Baba's called to his family to do his service. And so we are Brahmins together. We're becoming angels together. We're becoming deities together. So when I interact with other Brahmins, there's many more things that I have in common. I have to see what I have in common with someone so I can start to build a bridge, because the differences are the walls between us, and the common things are the bridges. So if I can establish a bridge with someone, I can start to interact with them at a spiritual level. And that makes any adjustment that I have to make very much easier. The next question, okay, let's say I'm trying to adjust to someone who's another Brahmin. What do I bring to this service? What are my qualities? What are my specialities? And also, what does the other bring to Baba? Because Baba has called me to be part of this great task, but he's also called his other soul. Baba has trust in that other soul, so why don't I? Baba has respect and love for that other soul, so why don't I? So if I start to think about my specialities, that will help me to start to think about the specialities of the other the other person. Now, if that other person is creating a difficulty, and let's be honest, we do have from time to time difficulty with others, other Lokik people or even other Brahmins. If there's a difficulty, I have to ask this question, and was very much something that came up in the Dharana-based leadership course. What does that person really want? They're creating a difficulty. Probably they want love. They probably want to be understood. They probably want maybe some recognition, or they need some affirmation about their own existence. It's something they want. So they want attention, maybe. So there's always something behind the difficulty. And if I can understand what they really need rather than want, what does that soul need? And I'm Baba's instrument. Baba knows what that soul needs. So it's not really a personal thing with me. They, for some other reason or the other, become influenced. And therefore, they're sort of expressing that influence in the form of some harsh words maybe, or some bossiness, or some attitude that we don't like. But if I really go, I sit with Baba and I ask them, Baba, what does this other soul really need spiritually? and really have that conversation. Then immediately you'll start to be able to adjust to that person. Because obviously, as Baba often says, if someone's having some not so elevated behavior, it's because they're under the influence of something or the other. And I was thinking today, Baba did mention in today's Morley, this morning's Morley, he made a reference to Dushashana and Draupadi. Now, I found out that the word Dushashana from the Sanskrit means actually someone who's difficult to govern, someone who's difficult to control. And so we are all sometimes, we've been through all of that. We've been in the Dushashana mode, someone who's been moved mainly by anger and lust. But at the same time, the whole problem came up because they laughed at his elder brother, Duryodhana, when he was trying to get into the palace. What was the palace? What was the name of the palace? Maya Sabha, which means the palace of illusion, the palace of Maya. So even the Pandavas lived in the palace of illusions, and they made fun of Duryodhana because he couldn't get in. It was making all sorts of attempts to get in, and they just laughed. So later on, he got his vengeance by asking his brother to try to, strip Draupadi and have his vengeance. But, we are all, this is our story. This is our story. We've been through the cycle. We've lived in the palace of illusions. We've had both sides of the equation. We've been sometimes Dushashanas and sometimes Draupadis. So we have the sanskars, and now we're trying to bring out our original sanskars. These things are not part of the soul. Any of the vices was developed over time. It was not there originally. No vices were there originally. They just came up as we lost power and we lost purity, as Didi has been saying these days. These things only exist because of lack of power and lack of purity. And if we get more power from Baba, we start to get his service. He's the purifier. I don't purify myself. I allow Baba to purify me. And in that way, I come out of all this illusion, this palace of illusions. And so I can get on with anyone. As I become more and more pure, I can get along with absolutely everyone. Because everyone is a soul. Everyone is a Baba's child. Some of them are special Baba's child and have become Brahmins. Some of them have not become Brahmins. Mostly haven't become Brahmins, but they are still Baba's children. So as he is the father of everyone, how should I treat everyone? So these are sorts of things that come out. And if I forget that, I become vulnerable again. And, wasteful things start to pull me and hold me and push me here. What do I have to get interested in at this moment? Where do I have to go with what Baba gives me? What are the specialities that I have to bring into this life? And how can I live only under Baba's influence and nothing else? These are the questions that I need to ask. So let's have some meditation now. Om Shanti. See you next time.